those who don't know what Philadelphia Works is, we are the city's workforce development board. We are charged with trying to find ways to get people back to work. That is our simple mission, which is extremely challenging in these times, but it's also one of great opportunity. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to talk a little bit today is what something that Malik kind of jumped ahead of me a little bit, like he stole my thunder a little bit on this. That's all right, Malik. So it is the tale of two cities, right? So we had a pre-COVID-19 city, which for all intents and purposes was doing very well. And then we have a COVID-19 and civil unrest city, which is beginning to respond. But, you know, there are challenges with that. Next slide, please. So pre-COVID, population increased, 13th consecutive year. A lot of it was based on, you know, the immigrants who come into our city that call this place home. They live in the communities, they work in the communities. We love the fact that we got so much diversity in our city. The residents were beginning to earn more college degrees. That has been upticking the past few years. We have seen an increase in jobs. For the first time in a long time, we had more jobs in the city than previous years, albeit the fact that most of them, unfortunately, were still in the retail sector and the hospitality sector. So the incomes weren't as great, but at least we know people were going to work. They had a chance to, you know, increase their skill level and then hopefully move up the career ladder. We also seen the median income rise a little bit to $46,116, and our unemployment rate was 5.2%. So we still had some challenges with trying to help people who aren't included in that rate. I think we do know that, you know, a lot of people were on the sidelines, still trying to find a way to get into the workforce. But I think now, next slide, please. You know, we still had our challenges pre-COVID, right? So one of the challenges that we saw was the poverty rate, as you've heard earlier, and then me today, just to reemphasize, it was 25%. We also saw an uptick in violent crimes, right? Which is something that is concerning to a lot of us in various communities, and the opioid crisis, a crisis that, you know, we don't talk much about now because we are in other sort of pandemic, you know, circles. But this is a crisis that is still very alarming in our city. So we had some of those issues pre-COVID. Next slide, please. Then March 16th happened and our life changed. I remember sitting in the office trying to tell staff, okay, we have to pack up and go home. We hope it'll only be for a couple of weeks and then we'll be back in. And unfortunately, that was not the case. So what's happening is, you heard from other presenters, the unemployment rate has soared. The number of people laid off was 175,000. We also know that of the 175,000, 120,000 do not have a high school diploma. Alarming numbers. Businesses closed, schools closed, daycare closed, and anxiety is growing. Next slide, please. We also know that this pandemic and civil unrest has really exposed a lot of issues. Dr. Generals did an excellent job kicking us off this morning, talking about them. Other speakers have also mentioned this, but I would tell you, from a workforce development perspective, trying to find ways to get people back to work when they don't have access to broadband services is really challenging. The latest survey we looked at, 26% of our households do not have access to broadband services. So as Dr. Generals was talking about, you know, how hard it is for people to make that transition to online learning, it's even more challenging if people have to struggle to find a way to even get online. And I think when we talk to our customers and ask them how are they doing, we do monthly check-ins with them. And for a lot of them, it was really hard and still is hard, because here they are trying to raise families, well, you know, hopefully looking for employment, or they're collecting unemployment. We know that food and housing insecurity was gigantic. We also know that racial inequity played a major role in this. And we are still struggling with high school graduate rates and GE attainment. So these are the issues that have come to the forefront. Next slide, please. So here are some of the things, and I would like to talk a little bit more about, so what are we doing now? And I think this is where hopefully we can have some conversation with all of us, because I think we need everybody to kind of look at this. And I think it's really important that we realize that how we had funded training programs in the past is not something we'll be doing in the future. We have to move the model. We can't have the model just be what we think people will go to employment and we hope that people will get a job. It really has to be based on employers who are willing to hire, who are willing to help us design the curriculum. You know, and Dr. General's made this comment earlier, like we have to be at the startup position. Like we want employers to come to us because we are the funder, and then we collaborate with our, you know, training providers to figure out, you know, what will it really take to help people go back to work. One of the things we're working on right now, and we did right as the pandemic hit, is a transitional work program. We helped to put about 300 people to work. We found funding to pay for their salary to help the city. They helped the city in two key areas. One, they helped to move food from the various warehouses into the 80 distribution sites. We also helped individuals move laptops from warehouses into individuals' homes via the School District of Philadelphia. The reason why we did that is because we knew we needed to get people back to work, but we also wanted to start to help them build some of their own skill sets, going to work on time, taking direction, understanding how to complete a task. Like these are some of the things that we have to continue to build upon, and we have to be willing to try different models. Not every single model is going to work for everybody, but it's really important. The other thing we're looking at is really moving our services to Philadelphia Works, to CareerLink, into communities. We no longer can have people just travel across the city to come into our centers. And we really got to get into the communities and find out what do people really need. So it's one thing to sit back in our office or in our, you know, committee meetings and think we know exactly what people want. It's a different thing to actually get into the community, talk to people, ask them what do they want and how will it be helpful. We're fortunate to have good working relationships and partnerships with groups like Join and others, whether it's the community college, you know, whether it's the Commerce Department, PIDC. What we're doing differently is really changing the way in which we collaborate. We are no longer looking at us as sort of this independent board, an organization that can just, you know, contract with organizations and hopes that people go to work. We have to be smarter and we have to think differently. We have to be open to change and we have to be open to feedback. I think if there's anything I was listening all morning, and we all have to be transparent. You know, we have to be open to the fact that what we're doing maybe isn't as good as it can be, but we also have to realize we got other partners that are willing to assist us. And we have to push, right? We have to push for resources. I think it's come time that we don't let local elected officials, or we don't let state representatives, or we don't let congressional people just continue to speak, but we need action. I think we don't have a lot of time to help people who are in crisis. People are in crisis. And what worries me a little bit as we look at, you know, July, at the end of July, the $600 a week federal stimulus that has been going to the unemployed individuals is ending. That is a significant amount of money that people will lose. It's $2,400 a week that they will no longer, a month, that they will no longer have. Our worry is that if that is not put back in place, or if individuals aren't able to transition back to work, we will see our customers moving more and more to moving on to the temporary assistance for needy families. Just over the pandemic, we saw an increase of 3,000 individuals sign up for TANF. That is before we hit this crisis at the end of July. So, you know, I think as organizations that want to work with businesses, that want to work with customers, we have to be strong advocates. And this is no time for us to sit back and have it, you know, have somebody else do it. I think we have to hold each other responsible, and we have to look for new models. I think it's really important that we do our research, that we also do our outreach to employers. We work with our chambers, and we really push the envelope.